Ladies and gents, welcome back to another Engineers podcast. Today I'm joined by Matija who's a software engineering manager at a company called Workera. Now, there's a lot of talk at the moment around large language models, deep learning, and these guys and girls are a skills intelligence platform which helps enterprise companies really assess and upskill their workforce. Mattia,
Yeah.
nice to meet you. How you
Hey,
doing?
Elliot. Nice to meet you. Doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm always good.
Yeah.
I'm always good. For the audience, do you want to give us an intro into who Mattia is? And also after that, if you like the elevator pitch on who Workera are.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to have a chat and to share also what we're doing at Workera. I'm Matija Lukic. By all my, I would say, education and heart, I'm a software engineer. And well, my path has taken me through working as a backend engineer for a number of years in a fintech company first, where I come from from Serbia. But then later on, I kind of moved to Netherlands for studies. Then started working as an embedded software engineer, actually in a very large semiconductor company here in the south of the country. Very fun times, very large scale challenges, I would say. Um, and then one thing led to another, and well, I moved a bit in the Netherlands, and then I joined another fintech company where actually I switched over to being a fully front-end engineer. So, like, I felt like I was seeing many different parts of the stack where engineers are exposed to. But then I joined Workera about a little bit more than a year ago as an engineering manager. So already for a few years in that role more, switching over from just being a software engineer to leading and coaching the teams. And as an engineering manager in Workera, I well, it's I would say well, I don't know if I would say it's a typical thing what an engineering manager would do because I think it depends from a role to role, from a company to company. Um, but I basically take care of the roadmap together with my partners from product, take care of the team and the way how we work internally and also with other teams, and also providing quite a lot of support for individual growth paths and individual growth of people. And actually being in Workera, it's also a very reflective experience for me as well of how am I as an engineering manager, because I think Workera is one of the products that is actually very highly targeting engine managers or yeah, people managers in general. So that's a little bit of my path that took me here.
Yeah, going back to some of your roots, what do you think the biggest, let's say, shift has been in moving from an embedded engineer
Yeah,
to, let's say, an application engineer or product engineer? What do you think has been the biggest shift or biggest challenge for you
yeah,
on that journey?
yeah. Quite a lot of people react like, "Oh wow, you went from embedded in C++ all directly into React and all that." I think the technological pace is a bit different, and also how much freedom you have to move fast. And I'm not talking here so much about the freedom of organization because that's always different, but like the how much does technology or your technical environment allow you to go fast. If you're making something that is an embedded piece of software, you're naturally bound to the machine or the piece of hardware that this embedded piece of software will be running on. So a lot of things were tied into this cycle of when are we actually releasing a new machine, because a new machine would come in a new package, and the way that we would win deals was by let's win the factory space, as we would say. Place the machine there, and once it's there, then we can iterate on the software, but we really need to get the machine with the basic package there. So that was a very interesting time, and it brings a bit of a different dynamic, and also it's a little bit different from the industry that you're also in, because I was semiconductor, and the next one that I worked in as a front-end engineer was fintech, pure software product. So you can kind of understand the full thing and reason about the full thing. And once you're working in a high-tech semiconductor company, like there are some kind of optics or research physics concepts that are sometimes, at least for me, like a few steps ahead, and I couldn't really understand everything. So it was also like how complex the products can be, and how much of domain knowledge can you grasp just as an engineer in a one part.
And that actual transition, how did that transition happen? And what I mean by that is, was that a combination of self learning to
Yeah,
learn more about front end engineering to then deliberately move into that, or any
yeah.
other reason?
It was. I think it was much more pragmatic. With my wife, we decided to move, and commuting was too much. So it was really driven by pragmatism. Also, every time that we make a choice in life, it's a choice for work. It's also impacting our personal life, and I simply was looking for a different balance. And I found the front end engineering in that aspect very appealing, because I felt that while working on the front end, the fruits of the thing that you create is very visual and very much in your face, and it's directly exposing your work to the people that will be using it, to the users, to the stakeholders. Like the UI is the first thing that you see, and that people that people are faced with. So that's something that I was sometimes a bit missing in the embedded software, in being an embedded software engineer, because you're a bit removed. The thing that people interact is then your machine, and then you kind of control the machine. And really, that was opening me up to think more about the product, to be really much more product minded, and to kind of upskill myself also about user experience and just product, I would say, management in general. All from the point of view of being a software engineer, but it's still good to kind of know what your side companion disciplines are working on.
Yeah, the realization of the impact can be felt that little bit more,
Yeah,
I guess,
yeah,
just because it's a lot more visual.
yeah,
Okay. Well, it's good to get to know you a little bit better. Give us your best sell on who Workera are.
yeah. I think there might be my colleagues from sales or customer success that might be a best sell, but I'll give it my fair shot.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, Workera is, let's say, it's a AI platform that allows, at the moment, it allows enterprises to transform, upskill their workforces. Um, if I like to always make analogies. So back in, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or so, you started having like digital transformations, right? You had waves of businesses that started to become more digitalized. Then about 10 to 5 years ago or so, with the boom of big data, and that was like early 2010s, a lot of people want to be more data driven, because acquiring data was kind of getting, it's easier and easier, right? Just speaking, coming back to that example from semiconductor, like we would get gigabytes and gigabytes of data for each machine. What is it doing every 100 milliseconds? And we will be able to track it and reason about it. So on that note, the thing that we are trying to enable, that we are actually enabling with enterprises, is becoming more, let's say, skills data driven when you're thinking about your workforce. So instead of having only gut feelings, being able to precisely measure what people's skills are, and then provide them with a personalized, precise experience to upskill themselves and paths how they can grow. That's the niche that we are addressing. Um, we also see that many of the leaders in that space, that are transformation leaders, in terms of upskilling, or changing the workforce, or upskilling the workforce, um, working with so much granular data and how to reason about the data, that's kind of new, the thing for them. If you're a business analyst, like maybe working with a lot of data, that's kind of natural, and you know how to reason about it. But then translating that to how do I upskill my workforce, that is also the coaching and the advising that we're also giving to these customers. So how do I first obtain the skill data, and then how do I use it to the best advantage for my own company, for the strategic goals that I have? And usually these companies are, that we're interacting, are ones that want to catch up with the technological landscape, because there have been quite a lot of, well, just to name, the AI developments that were going on, and people want to be, or the companies want to be ready for the future, and that's where we're helping them transform their workforce.
Okay. What data are you actually capturing for enterprises, and how are you actually capturing that data?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. That's a fascinating part for me about Workera. What we are having is a number of very precise measurements that let's I would just call them kind of tests. We call them assessments that people can do, and that are allowing on a very granular level to spot and then show later to the learners what skills are strong skills and what skills need improvements. And then when I say skill, I don't mean like just to say a little bit about the order of what the skill is. A skill is not a Python. That's not a skill. That's a full domain. And then within that, a skill within that Python domain, there might be 70, 80, 100 skills. One of them which would be debugging Python applications, and that is a concrete skill on which we can give advice and learning, also very precise learning. um, and how we actually do that is, well, what I said, these kind of assessments, and to make this experience very engaging, we're using machine learning models to make inference about things that you know. Because if you have 80 things, maybe we don't need to measure all the 80 things. Maybe actually, based on the data that we have, by measuring 15 of them, we can infer what are all the other things that you know. Because just to make it a really kind of a fundamental example, um, if we test you and you know about division, you probably know about multiplication. We don't need to ask you about that. So by having a lot of data of how people assess, we actually get enough knowledge, internal like knowledge within our machine learning models, to infer and to for you to have a better user experience.
Okay. So before we go on to talking about large language models and how they're actually used, I think it's fair to say, self-learning models or deep learning models, they're quite key and quite critical to actually the business offering of Workera, really,
Yeah.
and offering that to your customers.
Yeah, that's a fair thing to say. I think that the whole industry is now going in a direction where every little part of the platform you will be aiming to have either an assistance or some kind of logic of a kind of smartness um, being provided by the AI. Um, for Workera, that has been an embedded part since the day one of the company, because the company was made on a foundational assumption that using machine learning models, we can make efficient and engaging upskilling and measurement. And now, with the latest advent and the latest, it's been a year of big LLM developments, we are just even further accelerating in that space.
Yeah, spot on. And moving to that, the development of LLM over the last
Yeah.
6 to 9 months, even over the last couple of days, that isn't really relatable
Yeah.
to LLM
Yeah.
generally, but it's been a bonkers time. It's been a really bonkers time. So, talk to us a little bit about how LLMs are actually used in the platform.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to take a second to reflect on what you said. It was a bonkers time, and if I look at, so I joined Workera a little bit more than a year ago, and at that time it felt like it was a horizon that we would get to in 3 to 5 years. So the way that we were thinking about our platform was also, and the business uh, proposition that we wanted to have was not leaning onto that much. And then now it's a completely different change. It's as if the landscape has completely changed.
Okay, just unpacking that. So, you've joined within the last 12 months. Really,
Yeah,
the impact of LLMs has taken place. I don't know the specific timeline. Let's just say 9 months for argument's sake. So, how have you seen a business shift and pivot then to using LLMs really quite quickly and introduce that into their product offering?
yeah. What I've seen is that the LLM start to be used as a power tool. I would say as your co-pilot, as the thing that is going to auto-complete your work, give suggestions, and really make you a power user. That enables the business to scale and also Workera to scale. For example, for the assessments that I was mentioning before, it would have taken us 3 months to develop one. Now that gets that for the ones that are really that we are really thorough about, it gets to, I don't know, order of a week or two. But because of all the review process, but actually our tooling, it allows us to do within tens of minutes. So it just gets on the orders of magnitude that you can. It brings down the orders of magnitude in the speed that you can deliver value to the customer, and that also allowed us to become more self-serving. Instead of us guiding the user on how to build these things, the AI starts to guide the user, so that actually our business can scale. So that was a very interesting shift that the AI allowed us to do, and the large language models, because we became so accessible. Because now there's a public API from this or that provider that you can just start using and incorporating in your platform. We use it for sometimes to summarize complex content. We use it to personalize, personalize. Sorry, wrong accent. Personalize a certain upskilling experience. We use it to give managers, for example, a draft of an assessment, or like to generate questions, to generate domains, to generate a lots of things that people would need, because it does take less time to review and to curate than to create something from scratch. And if we can cut down that cycle time to actually provide you a good first draft and then give you suggestion to guide you with UI, then with AI, then that's what we aim for. That's what we do.
The cycle times and the time to actually build something is ridiculously phenomenal. If you're talking about 3 to 6 months, all the way down to a week slash tens of minutes, that is nuts.
Yeah,
To just go and build something that quick. That
and
has such an impact on the
yeah,
business.
and it changed I think it profoundly changed the whole business at Workera, because not only from internal efficiency point of view, but also what our product offering is and how do we market it, how do we position it. What it used to be our,
Yeah.
I would say, consultancy service, now it becomes an open box that using AI you can get pretty much to the standard that we are also keeping.
Yeah. That's why I was so intrigued. Like, as in the last 12 months since you joined, you must have really seen two businesses, really,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
to
there is yeah,
pivot that quickly and start selling yourself, start offering something really quite different, because the time to market and speed to build something is phenomenal. Um, we could talk about this all day. I really want to try and
yeah, yeah,
understand how LLMs are actually used in the platform. I know we touched
yeah,
on the assessment part and the speed of delivery, but it'd be good to just break that down,
yeah,
um, and then also touch on how different it is to building traditional
yeah,
software. We
yeah.
spoke about the times, but I'd be really keen to understand how different it really is.
Okay, so first, where the LLMs are used, um, we are using large language models to generate domains, or therefore assessments. How are we using? Most prominently, we are using large language models to generate the assessments, or as we call them, domains, for managers, to allow them to create something for their learners. And that can be, for example, you at Engineers, you might want to assess yourself on interviewing skills, just saying, or on setting up, or account, for example, account management, if that is a thing, whatever it may be. Um, a large language model would then generate you an ontology of all the skills. So a breakdown of how does interviewing skills break down into setting it up, interviewing, debriefing, whatever it may be, and then breaking it down to 30, 50, 70, whatever you want, however many you want skills. After that, what do? We ask the model, okay, first of all, tell us what it means to be a beginner in this, and tell us what it means to be an accomplished person. And that you can also check. You can then generate questions for each of these skills that would be used to assess. because you can also tell to a large language model, okay, down, generate a question that is assessing, um, asking tough questions, for example, and the large language model describes a situation and it allows you to pick between, it's basically a multiple choice question, allows you to pick the right answer, or well, it also suggests the right answer. Also, what the large language model does is for each of these skills, it gives you a quick lesson. Now, I think our society is such that we want a rapid thing. We want a to the point thing. We don't spend too much time. We give you a quick lesson that takes a few minutes to read, that to kind of get you into this skill, to this particular subject topic, and also gives you a few reference points what to look for further, like what are the other references that you can read about. Large language models are then also used for personalization on the learners. What I was talking about was more on the manager side, is you're setting up things, but on the learner side also to personalize the content, to figure out as well how, in what order you should be learning things. There we are using a combination between large language models and our own in-house models. This, I think, is giving you sort of an idea of how things are done. So a lot of, I would say, content, and that's where we've seen a large movement with the large language models. But what it really becomes easy is to create content. So that's one, like, and especially for a learning platform, that becomes relevant. Sometimes we've seen also large language models being used as the thinking engine. So instead of you think, now I'm going to make it really really dumb, but if instead of you making a sum of three numbers, you can ask a large language model to do a sum of three numbers. Now we're not doing that, but we're doing some kind of more um, a simpler thing, well, simpler for a large language model. Sometimes you have a piece of text and you want to extract some key concepts from that. Let's say that you add a prompt, so you say, okay, please generate a domain for interviewing skills for podcast, targeted at an experienced digital marketer, for example. And we use the large language model to pick out concepts from that, and in therefore also create better things. So we use it as a content creation. We use it, I would say, as kind of a classification tool or like extraction tool. Um, and also we use it as a summarizing engine. Um, in a sense, large language models become very, they sort of are becoming your black box that you can ask anything about, for any kind of business rules, and then it's up to you to choose how much control you want to have over this process. And that's where the differences in working with a large language model start to be visible. Now this was the second part of what you were asking. um, from experience of us. Oh, sorry, go on, you want to ask something?
No, no, I was going to say I can really see the value of the speed, the accuracy, the personalization for using the models, especially in your platform and your domain. I can really see that and the
Yeah,
value it brings.
yeah, because imagine that if it would take us, just thinking it from business perspective, if it would take you to create one domain for a bunch of humans, for 3 months, and now it takes a week, but still with some human intervention in the loop. Um, People are sometimes skeptical about large language models not always being precise. If you say, okay, humans are also not perfectly precise, large language model might give me content that is 80% all the correct. Human might give 95, but if human gives one piece, one assessment within 3 months, like there's a trade-off that I think now is tipping over to the large language model, that it feels very cost efficient or a good return on investment to use that as a starting point, and then you refine it together with the large language model or by yourself.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. So, how are large language models different to traditional software or algorithms that you've been involved in building?
Yeah. I think if I tell a bit of a tale of a backend engineer integrating with a large language model, it explains it a bit. Usually, if you have an API as a backend engineer, you would have a very defined API, a good defined semantic and syntactic interface. Or you would know how to call it. You would know what kind of response to expect back, and that's about syntax. But also you would have some certain expectation about the quality of data that's coming in, coming out, because the systems were all speaking about typical APIs. The systems will be kind of deterministic. And what we're dealing here now is more of a fuzzy interface, and it's fuzzy in both ways of the quality of data that is coming back, but sometimes also the form that is taking back. And it starts to remind me more of like the skills that I see effect for people that are working with prompts. The skills that are effective are similar skills that I think performance monitoring or performance tuning in systems is requiring. And that is being able to, for example, to be able to run experiments. You can't trust an LLM just on the first result that you get. You need to try out variations. You need to try out different angles and see what is giving you sustainably the best result. So it's not. It also depends on how we tune it. We tune the large language models with some level of temperature, as it's said, so some kind of variability, because you don't want always the same content coming back. And in there, you actually see that it's that you need, as an engineer, to find the right cutoff point where it pays off. Where what kind of it will never be 100% response always. There will always need to be some sort of margin for uncertainty of what we're going to get back from a large language model. So um, that's a bit of a different nature. I see that an engineer coming in and say, okay, I did it, it's done, and I don't need to look at it anymore because the API works as an API, integrated it, the contract is there, done. But with large language models, you kind of have a moving target, and you need to monitor it. You need to, so that's why I kind of related a bit more of a performance. You need to monitor it. You need to see if there is a drift in the model itself, because models also change and evolve over time, and whether on all the use cases that you want that is behaving as you want. So observability of the large language models, it also becomes a very interesting thing, not from like whether the service is up and running, but like what is the quality of data that's coming back. So one of the patterns is that every time that you integrate with the large language models, for every interaction, you start to ask for user feedback, just so that you know, like, okay, can I improve it? Can I not improve it? In what way would you like me to improve it? And then learn from
Yeah.
that.
Okay. So, in an evolving landscape with introduction of large language models, what do you think are the top three skills, attributes, characteristics that an engineer needs to have to thrive or be high
Yeah,
performing in this landscape?
yeah. I think so. Let's say extrapolate. Let's say that the landscape will be as evolving as it was in the last year. I don't think that we have signs of stopping. So I think it's going to continue like that for a year or two, whatever. Um, I think so. One thing that I value a lot is experimentation and being able to run experiments and to make a data-driven decision based on how, like, just we're having. I'll give you a concrete example. We're having a new usage of LLM to generate a question. Now, what makes a good question? Right? It's for what is for you a good question. It's different from me. So it's about setting up a criteria up front, like, okay, what makes a good question, and then trying out different angles, different prompts, and then being able to conduct an experiment and then to make conclusions based on the experiment, because it is really going to be more of an experiment than just we make the two things work and that's it. Um, so experimentation is one. I think the ability to integrate with new, like I wouldn't say to integrate, but to embrace new technologies is also another one, and that's also what we're expecting from every engineer on our end, um, because the landscape is moving quite a lot. So people that are successful are the ones that can pick out, that can track how the industry is going as well, because that can really give a competitive advantage to a company that you're working at. And for the third one, um, I'm going to flip it a bit. So all that that last part, the second part, was for me also covering like like what libraries are there, what models are there, and so on. And the third one, what I see is that since the access to this kind of a magical rule engine, or like the big brain of large language models, is very um, it's very yeah, basically that's very accessible. Being able to work cross functionally with your team, with your teammates that are more of a domain expert, that becomes really important, because with you as an engineer, working on integration, and with them steering a bit what is the right thing for the platform product that you're making, it can really open you up, because just the barrier from a domain experts or products mind to realizing that to implementing that piece of technology, it's much lower, because we have this big large language models that we can just query for knowledge. So those would be like the three things. Yeah, there's of course like understanding the technical parts underneath, understanding the APIs, but I feel like that's already a table stakes for any kind of an engineer nowadays.
No, of course. I think a question I'd love to ask to really try and understand the impact of AI, it's quite clear to see how impactful AI has been from a technological standpoint. But when you're actually thinking about scaling a business, do you think there's been any impacts that AI or large language models have had on the people scalability of businesses?
What do you mean by the people scalability? Just to understand that a bit better.
As in, so typical challenges that we see on engineers are around technology, how do people solve them? But as in, thinking about the growth of people, have you seen AI being able to actually grow business? It's quite hard to actually explain what I'm thinking here, but as in, has AI been able to aid actually the growth of business, not just from a technology standpoint?
Um, well, it's um, it's a part of okay. AI is now a part of the platform, but AI at the same time is also allowing every person to become more efficient and to find knowledge faster. So the same way that Google, like if I compare to my dad, and my dad likes to look at the encyclopedias and these technical textbooks, and he all the time spend like an hour finding a piece, and then in the late 90s, early 2000s, I would tell him, "Hey, Dad, I can Google." Amazing productivity gain. Now that's another jump that we're making now. We are extracting knowledge with a much more effective way, and it allows people to be more of thinkers and less of searchers for information, and less of aggregators, summarizer of information, and I think allows us to do what we always felt that it's being the most effective, not effective, but most engaging part to do. Um, there are always early adopters, and there are always late adopters. I forgot what's the curve, but there is a curve that explains all that, and it's chasm and all that. But there are people who are still wary of AI, and how does it know? How should I trust it? And that's, I think, the challenge of builders of AI platforms like ourselves. How can we make ourselves trustworthy, knowing that there is a black box in the background that is giving answers? How can we ensure that our customers trust us and that they still feel like in the control? Because one of the things that challenges that we're also having, and it's speaking of people aspect, um, is that people still like to be in control. In like, if I'm a manager and I'm giving you as my engineer in my team an assessment, I want to know what are you being assessed on, and not just AI do it. I want to still feel like I'm in a sense of control. Maybe that's part of still our early adoption of AI, that we still want to feel that we are in control or be in control. And over time, we will accept that, okay, AI, for this part, you are in control. But yeah, for now, I see that the successful product. Yeah, yeah. That if for engineers talking about co-pilots, and some of them are really passionate about and effective, and some of them are like, no, like I'm still better than it. I'm still smarter than it, and that kind of causes them not to embrace things fully. The technologies that are coming, or the power tools that are coming in. So I think that was the
Yeah, for sure.
effect
Okay.
of
One
people. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I bet. No, it's cool. One thing you particularly wanted to focus on is the shape up methodology
Yeah.
versus Scrum. So, would you like to set the scene on that and maybe how Workera use that or their thoughts towards it and help the audience understand?
Yeah. Absolutely. So we are to explain more from an engineering perspective for Workera. We are a full remote company, and we aim to have high ownership of from the engineer's point of view of what you're doing. Actually, we always say we're hiring product engineers. So when you're designing a full product, when you're engineering, you're not just producing code. You're engineering problems and engineering solutions. You're simplifying problems and simplifying solutions. So ShapeUp is a methodology that allowed us to emphasize that ownership and to give people the freedom to solve problems, and stimulate that over some other things. Now, for me, I also have quite a lot of experience in using Scrum. Actually, also sometimes in Waterfall back in the day, a long time ago. Um, I think for every team or for every industry, there is a place and time for any of this. You could find an effective, the most effective approach is to use Scrum, or the most effective approach is to use ShapeUp. It depends on on different moments in time that you are. ShapeUp is a software methodology that basically says, well, let's have 6-week build cycles, and build cycles are dedicated for small teams of 2 to 3 people that are working together for 6 weeks to solve a business problem. Um, at the end of these six week cycles, there is a 2-week cooldown cycle, and that's kind of like if you're running, you're basically running intervals, right? You run, and then you take a you chill out for a bit, and you say, okay, for 2 weeks, what we're going to do is not focus on the big initiatives. We're going to focus on the small polish. We're going to focus on personal learning. We're going to focus on tying up loose ends, cleaning up technical debt, whatever we feel that the corners that we had, those that we cut, that we need to polish out those things. So it works in this tempo of 6 weeks of intense build time, and then 2 weeks of cool down time. What is also interesting is that when we are planning out a cycle, so the 6 weeks, we don't have really a concrete solution in mind yet. There are a few options, but there is not one committed solution to do. It's not like there is a design document to do and you need to fill in a certain design. Of course, there are always constraints in the system, that's fine, but like how people are implementing, and even to what level do they solve the problem, it's up to them. To give a simple example, in a platform, you might have a manager who wants to send a reminder to an employee, hey, please go and revisit this learning that I gave to you. That can be as simple as sending out an email, but that can be as complicated as in-app notifications, different filtering options, whatever. And all of this scoping and creating a solution is done within the 6 weeks by engineers, driven by engineers. Um, so that's I think somewhat of a difference in the preparedness of the solution that is given to the engineers before we start working on things. Usually in Scrum you would prepare it a bit more. Now, good teams in Scrum, I think, do it also themselves. They prepare work. Some that are not so that haven't grown yet so much might have other people preparing work for them. So in that sense, shapeup stimulates and expects from people to own the problem and therefore provide a solution within a certain time frame. And then there is we also what is also interesting is that we don't have long term. Well, we don't estimate the effort for a certain pitch or product project, but we say appetite. So how much am I willing to invest versus how much is going to cost? Because usually there is always a solution that you can do. And if you give people 9 months to work on a problem, they're going to work it for 9 months and they're going to gold plate it. So we as business, then we say, we want to invest 3 weeks in this, or we want to invest 6 weeks in this. And that also shapes the scale that you solve the problem to. So
Interesting methodology, and it's got some similarities between mob programming.
yeah, well, in a sense, but more programming is more of a, well, yeah, it's like solving a problem together, jumping on together on a solution. We What we do also optimize for in shapeup is very small teams of 2 to 3 people, because of a remote setting, to cut the communication lines. Because if you need to keep more and more people involved, that becomes hard. So most of the teams that we have are basically 2 or 3 people plus the support them from a product design or product manager, or myself as an engineering manager sometimes, and getting that done in a focused way from week 1 to week 6.
Yeah, nice. Lastly, we always touch on hiring, and I want to explore. Obviously, you're fully remote, like you mentioned. I want to explore for people listening what you're looking to introduce into the business from a talent perspective over the next 12 months. Bearing in mind, last 12 months was no doubt crazy time for you. What do you think the next 12 months might bring in terms of hiring people into the business?
Yeah, I think that what we are looking forward to in the next 12 months is especially growing our go-to-market space. I think we have a solid engineering team that is also growing in Europe. Um, in the engineering product side, we are still expecting um, people like some of the roles that we'll have is product manager, an engineering manager also in the future. But not only that, also engineers like Elixir engineers, because we're Elixir based. We have an Elixir based tech stack, and also front end engineers. Um, I do see that at the moment that we are now, we have been very technology oriented company, product oriented company, which is also good. And we basically are expecting a growth next year, a boom next year, using all the developments that we have made to actually roll out the platform and spread out the usage. We already have a couple of dozen of clients, but we feel like the ceiling is much higher.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you to come and join us. 45 minutes has flown by, and it's been really interesting to see the evolution of the business over the last 12 months, your introduction as well, um, and everything that's gone on in the LLM space. So I massively appreciate that. It's going to be an exciting time seeing what happens in the next 12 months for you guys and girls. And from everyone at Engineers, we're going to be following that progress. And obviously, best of luck. For people listening, it's your usual likes, shares, subscribe, share this with people. Your business could introduce this product. Opportunities are endless. So, Matija, thanks for coming to join us. Massively appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity, Elliot. I enjoyed it.
Absolute pleasure.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Massively appreciate you listening and checking in with us. If you want to find out more about us, and what we're doing, please check us out on social media. What we're trying to do at Engineers is build a community to drive knowledge sharing and experiences. On Twitter, we can be found Engineers.io, it's no_. We've also got a website which is engineers.io. These links will all be posted in the description. Any feedback and comments are massively appreciated. We're always looking to improve on where we can. Thanks, guys.